Welcome to the Low Carb MD podcast. No one is beyond help. No one is beyond hope.
As we have always said, we are bringing you medical information and cutting-edge science, but none of this is medical advice. Please seek out input from your own doctor.
Hello and welcome to the Low Carb MD and the Life's Best Medicine podcast, because I have a big guest here, Doug Reynolds. He's running all kinds of stuff, man. He's got LowCarbUSA. He's doing the Symposium for Metabolic Health in San Diego, Symposium. Awesome stuff. He's pulled so many people from so many areas. And I'll tell you, his conference is what really started making me think about metabolic health and low carb and the impact we can have on each other and community and our patients. So Doug Reynolds, welcome.
Hey,
so awesome to
thanks.
have you, man.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
You've been a busy guy.
I have, yeah. So, we were talking off air about this fact that, we started Low Carb USA 8 years ago now. 2016 was our first event, and it's evolved into something way bigger than we ever imagined it would. And one of the things that's evolved out of that is the creation of the nonprofit called the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners, which is there to support and provide a home and a safe haven for all the practitioners that want to embrace this lifestyle intervention to address the metabolic health of their patients. And I was just saying to you that we've done really poorly in making people understand that they're two separate entities. That Low Carb USA provides these conferences and those sorts of resources, whereas the SMHP provides resources for the practitioner and for the public to find them. So there's a provider list where they can go and search for people in their area that would be able to help them if they want to embrace this intervention in their lives, find low carb, keto friendly type doctors. But then, we provide training, we're providing accreditation to them, and the more and more, I think we've got like 60 something actual practitioners accredited now, where they've got the special badge they can display MHP for metabolic health practitioner after their name as a credential. And Pam was just talking to someone else about it just the other day that, we have numerous people. And one in particular that comes to mind, where she actually wrote to us and said, when I wrote to her and said, your accreditation has been approved, she said, this means so much more to me than even when I became a doctor and I got my MD. Because now I feel like I actually have the tool to be able to really help my patients. And you're a perfect example of that, Brian, where you for 20 years or whatever before you came across this, you really hadn't managed to help any patients with the chronic diseases and stuff, that especially diabetes and stuff. And since you came to that conference in, what was it, 2017, 18, one of those, and you started all of this stuff, you put on that course, that 6 weeks course at your church. And then you started the Low Carb MD with Tro, and you've done so much to help further the knowledge and education in this space for people.
And a lot of it was because of your conference, right? When I saw, oh my gosh, there's all these other people who get it that are helping people. I saw from a neurologic standpoint, from a cancer standpoint, when you sit back and you think, wow, these, it's so interesting to me. I just was listening to an interview with Dr. Seafried, talking about cancer and low carb and metabolic health, and you think, wow, I mean, the impact, because he says, well, for him, the side effect is, the diabetes gets better and the mood gets better, but he's treating the cancer and we're treating the diabetes, and we see the mood get better. We see all these ripple effects of having a healthier lifestyle. And I think the thing that really brought it to attention for all doctors who are paying attention was the importance of metabolic health in COVID. When you go through a big illness, we knew who was dying. And when you start looking, saying, wow, what can we tackle of those things? What of those, as Ben Bickman talks about, 5 big things of metabolic health, right? Not working yourself and stressing yourself out, which I was doing, getting enough sleep, which I was not doing. And so I was putting myself at risk just from that. But then it's eating real food, cut out the processed food, bread, pasta, rice as much as possible. Next, don't smoke or drink to excess. Next, exercise regularly. It's not that complicated, but it's those 5 things. And we have to see what of those 5 things can we tackle. And that's why I'm excited about your shift too, from just saying low carb diet. Yeah, but if you're low carb and you're mad at the world and you hate everyone and you're not sleeping and you're fighting with your neighbor all the time, it's all a big picture, right?
Right. You're not going to get better if you just change your diet. You have to embrace all the things that contribute to this, all the lifestyle things that lead to better metabolic health, which is why we've kind of, instead of calling it Low Carb USA, it's now called the Symposium of Metabolic Health. So we're moving away from being pigeonholed as just talking about the ketogenic diet as an intervention, but like all the lifestyle changes that are required to be really healthy. And so we kind of excited about that. It's happened over the last couple of conferences, but people are writing to us all the time and saying that they really like the change in the focus of it. And just speaking of that, for the first time in our conference in Boca in January, we kind of focused, not the whole conference, but at least one day of it, specifically on a topic. And that particular topic was food addiction, carbohydrate and food addiction. And so we actually had a workshop, like a practical workshop, the day before the conference even started for the people that could get in early. And then the whole first day was all about carb addiction. And that went down really well. And so we've kind of decided, like, at least until we come up with a better idea, that maybe each conference that we do will have some kind of focus on a particular condition. So the San Diego event coming up in August, we've got to focus on cancer. You were talking about Tom Seyfried. I mean, he's part of this movie that a couple called Brad and Maggie Jones. I did a podcast with them. I think you've done with Maggie as well.
Yeah.
Incredible people. And, Brad's got a lot of experience with movie making. And so they are making a movie that's actually turned into a whole series. I think it's going to be like 6 parts now or something. And the first part is about to be released. So they are coming to our event. They're going to be speaking. We've got Anthony Chaffee from Australia. He's actually an American, but he's working in Australia now. He's going to be speaking about some particular aspect of cancer. Matt Phillips from New Zealand will be there. Naisha Winters, who most people in this space are very familiar with. Dom D'Agostino is going to be there. Hopefully we can get him to tone it down a little bit so the rest of us can understand what he's talking about.
Yeah, he's a brilliant guy, and he's a really nice guy. And so just seeing people like that who are invested. He's done work with the military. He's done a lot of stuff. Right. And how do we make our warriors healthier? And how it's just amazing how this is going into all aspects of life. And I want to make it clear to people it's all a cycle too. So does everyone have to do low carb? No. There's some people who can work out, they're triathletes, and they're super metabolically healthy. They have normal insulin, normal A1C, so they could probably liberalize it. But if you're a diabetic, morbidly obese, and you got all these health problems, you got to fix that. You got to be more radical at the beginning, maybe. So, but also realizing, hey, I have to sleep, I have to be stressed. And so what Doug was talking about with food addiction is a lot of us, we get stressed out, we want to eat cookies to calm our nerves, or we get, tired and we want to eat something, or we're bored and we want to see what's in the freezer or the fridge. And so that contributes. So when we get the stress level better, guess what? The binge eating gets better a lot of times. When we get life, when you're content with what you're doing, if you have a hobby, you go do things. And I've seen it. And I've seen the effects of stress and sleep deprivation dramatically in my patients. So I'm excited to talk about that at the conference, but really realizing it's that big picture. And that's why we did Life's Best Medicine, talking about, okay, let's talk about everything else but the diet. Let's talk about the stress, sleep. How do you deal when everything's terrible around you? How do you survive something like COVID? How do you go through, life traumas? Because we're all going to be there. And so eating a healthy diet definitely helps you. And I see patients all the time who are going through a life stress right now. And they said, a year ago, I wouldn't be able to handle it, but now I can, because I'm not this emotion of sugars going up and down and stress and all that kind of stuff. And it's pretty amazing the impact we can make.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the whole first day is going to be focused, all these amazing speakers, ending up with Brad and Maggie at the end. I don't know exactly yet, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be some part, at least, of the first episode that we'll get to watch during that thing. Then we'll have a panel at the end of that first day, and then the rest of the conference is kind of business as usual, the way it's been in previous years. And we've got Rob Cybus, obviously is pretty much a staple at our events. Like, he's so supportive of us, and since I discovered him, he's been to pretty much every event that we've put on. Dave Feltman is doing this amazing stuff with this clinical trial that he's doing with his lean mass hyperresponders, and he's always hypes it up, and he's got some big announcement of the latest bit of data that he's able to publish and talk about, as this trial proceeds. Steve Finney has been to many of our conferences, and he's back again. Mike Eads, he spoke at our very first event in 2016, and Mike and Mary Dan Eads have a blog and stuff that, he's got this huge following.
He's hilarious. He's a hilarious guy. And
that's the thing, we just kind of, I don't know why, but we kind of lost contact. And just recently in January, we connected again, and he came and spoke in Boca, and he's now coming to speak here again in August. And just as you were saying, just meeting him again reminded me, he is the funniest guy ever, like one of the most intelligent people that you can come across, but such an amazing sense of humor. And like, everything he says is kind of, peppered with some kind of sarcasm or humor in what he says. And it's such an entertaining person to talk to that I actually envy the people that get to sit at the table at dinner with him, because that's when he really kind of comes into his own, like when he's sitting around having those, those kinds of conversations that happen around the dinner table. I can guarantee you, if you're sitting at dinner and you hear a crowd at some table like burst out laughing all the time, and you look, I bet you Mike Eads will be sitting at that table. That's just the way he is. Gary Taubes is coming back again. Dr. Mike Hoffman is actually a neurologist based in Florida, who another South African really that actually went to the same university as me. He was a couple of years ahead of me. We stayed in the same residence, but he was a senior and I was a junior, so I never really got to know him back in those days. But it was really cool to connect with him again, and he's done some amazing work as well, and done a lot of training and talks for the Nutrition Network and Oaks Foundation, and so it's a lot of the training that we provide to people who want to try and get accredited on the SMHP side. Again, LowCarbUSA, SMHP. I happen to be very involved in both, but they are different things. We really want to get that concept across to people that it's not the same thing.
Yeah, and it's important because as a practitioner, the biggest frustration I've had, and having the podcast and things, people as a matter of fact, I was just talking to my office manager yesterday. I have 3 people flying in from Washington, 2 from Oregon, just to establish care, because they said, look, I don't trust. I have one, doc. He goes, I don't trust anyone up here. I just don't. There's no one I trust that I work with, and I'm coming down. So,
Wow.
but it's crazy. There should be a list where we go, hey, you know what? Don't fly down. There's a great person up there that we can send to, or in Idaho or Nevada, wherever it is, that we can have good people everywhere, that we're all trained the same way and we understand.
That's what the provider list on the SMHP is supposed to be for, right? You're supposed to be able to go in and search for someone and find someone in your local area. But that's so it's kind of limited by 2 things. First of all, we're a new organization, only a couple of years, and so we have I think like 1,200 people or something now in that database, but it's continuously growing as people keep adding their information into it. But at the same time, what I'm finding is that people are writing to me and saying like, hey, I did a research and I didn't find anybody in my area. And sometimes it is the case that in that particular area, nobody there either has heard about the SMHP, so they come put the information in, or there just aren't people in that area that have embraced this yet. But what was I going to say about this? I can't remember. I was going somewhere with the provider list. Oh, yes, that's what it is. They're saying that they couldn't find people. And when I asked them how they searched, and they said, oh, they searched for a doctor that has a specialty in neurology that is in this city, in this state. And what happens is that the search engine is only as good as the information that's there, right? So when somebody joins, they join and it's just their name and their email address, and then they have to go into their profile and actually set it all up and set up their specialities and where they are and blah, 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 all of these different things, all these different criteria that the search engine actually searches on. And what happens is that a lot of the doctors don't go in and fill that stuff out. So if you look for someone in Arizona, but you're asking for someone specifically with that category, then it only is going to search on people that have filled in that category.
Whereas and really,
so that's what I'm trying to encourage people to do, is don't start out with a really tight, strict search. Like start out and search on Arizona only, and see what you get. And then you can start trying to filter.
Yeah, I have to put my Arizona. I haven't done mine. I got to put my information.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
The thing is, you can find someone good like Krishna Hanks who knows what she's doing. She's going to find the doctor who she's going to work with, right? So that's what's been really cool, is there's a lot of good people, Dr. Carrillo, and there's so many down there in Arizona that I've met already.
Right.
So the problem is, sometimes you get a doctor, like if you're looking for a neurologist, for instance, if you have just a internal medicine doc, they'll say, look, here's the neurologist I recommend, or there may be nobody. Yeah. They may say, go to San Diego to find a neurologist who understands low carb, but not everyone has to understand it. You just got to do it. You just got to have someone to guide you in that,
But again, reiterate, do a very wide search. Start out in the US and then just specify a state. And then, worst comes to worst, you literally have to one by one, like go through those people until you find someone that's close enough to you that would be able to help you. But don't get put off by the fact that you do a really tight search and it doesn't work. And then at the same time, I'm constantly speaking to people like you and saying, please fill out your profile properly so that people can find you, if they do try to do these strict searches.
Yeah, I'll be a good kid. I'll go in and fix that.
Go and fix
because things have changed too, and a lot of us are, we're seeing the need and we want to fill that need. But like for me, that was part of my move to Arizona, is that I can open up to 27 states. And from California, they don't reciprocate, but Arizona does, with Texas and all these different states.
Right.
But for me, it's like, hey, if I have a good person in Idaho, I'm not going to get licensed in Idaho because I'll say, go see that person. Why should I take care of someone in Idaho and on their remote? Right. So there's a lot of that where we realize the need and the stuff we're doing with reversing diabetes and putting them in remission and doing, with mood stuff. And so people are seeking us out just for things outside of diabetes, right? Diabetes is the bread and butter for most of us, but there's so much more. And when you get that sugar under control, the mood gets better, the hormones get better. It's incredible what we see. And it's almost like you don't believe it. It's like the magic pill, you know, when you start seeing it, you go, oh my gosh, it helps all these conditions, you know, from joint pains to headaches to you name it. So why suffer all the time? I look around and see so many people suffering. It's like, man, if they just tweak that a little bit, they'd feel better. You know?
I mean, it's like, you know, my old sad sob story, you know, with my parents, like all the things that they struggle with that I know would be so much more improved if they just had to change what they ate, but
plus
their engineer's son doesn't know anything about medical stuff and nutrition, so why should we listen to him, you know?
Well, plus your story of what brought you to low carb, you know, of having head trauma in a car accident and not being able to focus and concentrate. Now you're running all these things. You're doing a ton of stuff that, you know, you have a lot against you, you know, and you made some lifestyle changes that made a huge difference in how you felt and your mental focus.
Right. Yeah, no, it's just amazing how, and like a lot of those things, I wasn't even expecting when I tried this, you know. It was like so many things, like you're talking about respiratory issues and skin issues and all sorts of little things that you didn't think about. And after a while, you start to say, hey, wait a minute, like that's, you know, dry skin patch on my ear that's been there for so long is cleared up. And, you know, I was constantly breathing through my mouth because my nose, my sinuses were always that swollen that I couldn't really ever breathe through my nose. And, you know, that's changed completely. Like I can lie in bed and go to sleep breathing through my nose with my mouth closed. And so I don't wake up feeling like someone died in my mouth the next morning, you know. That's quality of life stuff that you don't even think about when you embark on this journey. All awesome bonuses, you know, that become apparent as time goes by.
Yeah, it's really amazing, you know, especially things like chronic inflammation that we're dealing with, of asthma and acid reflux and all these problems that you see, and they go, it's gone. I don't take antacids anymore. You know, my stomach got better.
Yeah, exactly.
Mood got better. And, you know, I think the biggest surprise and the biggest thing, and this is why I talk about it, is mental health. We are in a disaster right now with mental health after being locked down, after having stress. I think we're dying if we breathe air and all these things that we've been through for the last 3 years. And I've seen a huge jump in substance abuse, bipolar disorder, major depression, anxiety, panic attacks, poor sleep. And so if we can attack those things, we can do so much better too. And we see the now you see people like Georgia Eid, and you see people like Chris Palmer and Ignacio Correnta, and all these people that are really attacking the mental health. They're looking for, they're not worried about diabetes. They're looking at the mental health aspects. Diabetes gets better as a result. So one thing that I've observed as a doc is poorly controlled diabetes highly correlated with depression. So I didn't know the chicken and the egg, but it turns out the sugars are poorly controlled before the depression comes, right? It's not, and then they really don't care anymore, and their sugars go crazy, and then we have all these complications of diabetes and all this stuff downstream. But, you know, being able to control that, and then the important critical thing that you're really hitting on is the addiction aspect, because we could read and know everything, but when you're addicted, it doesn't matter how smart you are, you're addicted. You can be an alcoholic and be the smartest person on earth, right? Or hooked on cookies and be the smartest person. So it's not that you're ignorant, it's that you're addicted.
Right. Yeah, no, I think the whole addiction piece of it is so important. And I think, you know, Rob Cybus has been the guy that really showed me how important it was to be tolerant of that. You know, when I first started doing this, when I first started LowCarbUSA, and you know, we were talking to people and they would say to me, oh, it's so difficult. And I'd get kind of short with them and say, it's not rubbish, it's not difficult. But I realize now that although I ate so much chocolate and so much crap before, I ate it because I enjoyed it, but I wasn't actually addicted to it. So when I changed the way I ate and I was, okay, this is bad for me now, I didn't look back. Not once have I pined for those, honeycomb malt balls and stuff that I used to have a huge bowl of them next to my seat when we were sitting in the evening watching TV. And I'd literally eat them in handfuls of them. But yeah, I chucked what I had away, and I've never looked back. And so I never understood or had tolerance for anybody who didn't find it easy. I was able to eat stuff with fat and everything, and I just started loving food again. And who cares if I can't eat rice and pasta? The sauces that go on top, the meaty sauces and the fatty sauces that go on top of those, that's what tastes good, and I can eat that. So who cares? And then Rob came into my life, and being someone that struggles with carb addiction very severely, he made me understand how important it was, or what a big thing it was, and how important it is that we understand this and try to help people with it.
Yeah, and that's what with Rob, he's talked on a variety of subjects, right? From
right.
He goes, you're like, what do you? I remember in Boca when I went to that conference, and he was talking about mindfulness,
Right.
about calming your nerves and meditating. And I was like, Rob Sivas, of all people, he's super intense.
Mhm.
But I sat down with him after and talked, and really that was a life changer for me to leave my old practice, because I realized, like, I can't be stressed and run around like an idiot and have no downtime ever.
Right.
It has a huge effect on you. When you're just a cog in the wheel, and like so many doctors, and that's why I'm so happy with what you're doing too, is I'm telling you, I talk to ER docs all the time, and they go, I need out. I can't handle it anymore. I hate what I'm doing, or I'm just overwhelmed all the time, and I'm stressed, and I'm getting the same things my patients are getting because I'm stressed and tense. So it's one of those things we start having to reassess. And I think a lot of doctors are jumping out of the system, and part of it's Low Carb MD. We've had an impact because people listen and go, maybe if these guys, and we wanted to show, and there's another important thing that Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners, LowCarbUSA, you've really said, hey, we have to change the standard of care. We have to turn this food pyramid upside down. We have to make it the standard. And the reason we started Low Carb MD was, if there's only 5 of us doing it, we have a huge target. If we have 50,000 doctors doing the same thing with great outcomes, all we can do is show our outcomes in our data. And we have the data now, because Tro's done a great job of keeping data and doing studies and
Right.
showing it. Not just a case report saying, hey, this guy, his diabetes got better. But when you say, hey, look, here's 80 people, 1,000 people that are having benefit. Verta came along and did all the science for us too, to say, hey, this works. We're all kind of saying the same thing with Finney. And then the other thing, Doug, that the other person who's really been critical is Ben Bakikio, right?
Yeah.
With what he's doing. I know he's speaking, and it's really amazing when you realize, when we started low carb, I think at that first conference, no one talked about exercise.
No.
You go, just change your diet and everything will be better. And this is what we're looking at: metabolic health. Exercise is a part of that, and it might be just for stress relief, right? And so when you look at the data on exercise, it doesn't really make a difference in weight loss, but what it does is help with maintaining weight loss. So people who
Right.
exercise, once they lose their weight or their exercise, or they stay consistent with that, and it might be just because people who exercise are more diligent, and they're going to be more diligent about what they eat too. But exercise plays a huge role in emotions, mood, oxytocin levels, lowering the stress hormones, lowering insulin, does a ton of stuff. And it's like, okay, if I could have a pill for that, I'd be a multimillionaire and retire for what exercise does.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the other thing that, with Ben's exercise regimen, the fact that he's talking about doing 15 minutes twice a week. Anybody can find 15 minutes twice a week. It's just, there's no excuse for not doing it. And it is so beneficial that yeah, everybody should be doing it. He's been a revelation as well. Also, since we discovered him, he's kind of been at pretty much all our conferences since then as well, because it's so important to include this exercise component in the thing. And like you said, it's not about using exercise to lose weight. It's about using exercise to, especially Ben's form of exercise, where it actually activates the same metabolic pathways that the ketogenic diet does. And so it works in tandem with the diet to reinforce it. That is so important to, and like you said, you've got the psychological effects and the stress relief and those sorts of things that are kind of intangibles that you can't see the actual effect of it, but down the road when the person finds that they're in a better place, and so they're not driven to go back to this carb binging and stuff that they used to do before, because that's what happens. People get their whatever diet they use, whether it's ketogenic diet or anything else, they get down to where they want to go, and then they'd say, "Oh, the ketogenic diet doesn't work. Look, I put all of this weight back on." It's like, but if you stop doing it and you start eating all the crap again, what do you expect? You didn't put weight on just randomly. You put weight on because of the crap you were eating. So if you go back to eating that crap, you're going to put the weight back on. But they blame the ketogenic diet for not working because they don't do it anymore. But once you do exercise, Brian, but so once you're doing a bunch of exercise and your stress levels come down and everything, becomes suddenly so much easier to say, okay, well, let's just keep doing this. You're in a better place. You feel good. And so you think, okay, let's keep this going.
Well, then it switches where you exercise because you feel like exercise, you enjoy it, not because you're trying to lose weight or saying, oh, I eat cookies actually, so I got to go work out harder. It's
exactly.
When people feel better, they go, let's go for a hike instead of having dinner. Let's go and do something more active. And so when people are more active, their mood gets better. And then they're around people who are more positive. And when you're on a hiking trail, everyone's friendly. Right. Yeah, you pass someone, they say hi. They don't say, hey, what's your political party? Hey, what's your religion? No one cares. They're like, you're enjoying the day, I'm enjoying the day, right? You connect with people so much. And that's one thing I've noticed. When you're out doing stuff, people are smiling and happy, and they're out enjoying life, right? And so many of us are just sitting in a cubicle all day, and we're under these imitation lights. We don't get out. And that's what this whole thing of metabolic health is understanding. If you're 500 pounds, you can't just go out for a walk in the wilderness, right? It's too hard. And so what I see is a lot of people, as they get older, they don't think about it. And then it's too late and you can't get out of your bed and you're sitting in a wheelchair and you can't exercise and you're hurting all the time. And so sometimes just doing the dietary stuff will help you get to a point where you can exercise and be active. I have a kid in my practice, and I'm sure you've met him along the way at our meetings, and he's lost about 200 pounds, but now he's jogging again. That was his dream. He's jogging and he's put on 25 pounds of muscle. So in the last 9 months, I think he's lost 4 pounds, but he's put on 25 pounds of muscle. That means he's lost 29 pounds of fat, right? And he's a totally different, you look at him. Plus, not only that, he's engaging with people. Before he was very closed off. He's engaging, sharing his story, sharing his experience, because he's not in this cage anymore. He's free. Yeah. And he wants to help other people along the journey, because we're all suffering, to some degree.
I mean, I've even heard that you were a bit like that, weren't you? That you were much more reserved and quiet before you discovered this.
Well, I'm reserved.
I remember your wife. It was one of the San Diego meetings, local San Diego meetings that we had, and you were afterwards, you were in the corner and you were jabbering away to everybody, and. She was talking to Pam and myself, and she said something like, who is that guy? What have you done with my husband? I think she was bursting with just seeing how passionate you were and how just the zest for life and stuff that she obviously hadn't seen when you were struggling in that practice of yours before you found this.
Yeah, when you're stressed and running around all the time, the last thing you want to do is make small talk with people. You're thinking of all the stuff you got to do. You don't have time for small talk. Yeah. And so I remember that. One day I sat there, and I'm a pretty compassionate guy, and one of my coworkers, she's older, one of the receptionists, she wanted to show me pictures of her grandkids, and I was thinking, you know what, Dear Lord, I got so much. I
have
have
a good time.
30 people to call back. I'm not getting home till 8:30. Now I'm going to look at your grandkids for 10 minutes. I don't really care. At that point, I was like, what kind of person doesn't even care about someone's, the love of their life? And then you start realizing, oh man. And that's why, this whole thing of slowing down a little bit, enjoying the day, going out and sitting on the beach and doing nothing for a little while for us. When Rob was talking about that, and that's why it impacted me. I started getting stressed out, and I'm not a stress guy. I started realizing, man, if I waste time spending time with my family or spending time with friends, I'm thinking about all the stuff I got to do, and shutting down for 2 days, forget it, man. I'll never catch up. And it was like being on a treadmill too fast. And so many people, would tell me that, like, Brian, like, I haven't seen you. We haven't talked in a year and a half. Like, I thought we were friends, that kind of thing. Is like, well, heck, by the weekend, I'm recovering. I'm exhausted. And like, I just want to be on my couch and do nothing. So yeah, you start realizing the impact of that chronic stress and sleep deprivation. And that's why I want to talk about it at this conference, because I see it in patients all the time. And the craziest thing, Doug, I see it over. I have a guy who just got back from Europe. He went to Europe. He left at 267 pounds. He comes back and we were talking, he's 241. I said, wait a minute. You mean 261, 271? He goes, no, 241. I go, how can he be 241? You lost 25 pounds? Yeah. What'd you do? I just walked. I wasn't staring at my refrigerator all day. He's retired now. And just going for little walks. He goes, I got some cheese and meat, and I sat in the park and I talked to people, and I didn't eat like cookies every night. And I lost 25 pounds. He goes, I wasn't even trying. Right. But then he came back and gained 10 pounds right away. So we go, okay, we got to fix some of this stuff. So you start realizing, when you slow down the stress and you just are sometimes, and not like have to conquer the world and get that new Ferrari or whatever it is, people do better. Right? When they realize what really matters. And that's what both of these podcasts hopefully come across to people, saying, look, you can eat a perfect ketogenic diet and be upset and not sleep and be stressed and fight with everyone, and you're going to struggle. It's just the way it is. It's those stress hormones, cortisol, insulin, all this kind of stuff that we're at battle with. So, okay, how do I lower those things? Right. And so sometimes it's just sitting with a friend like you and talking like this. I like this. I'm sure my stress hormones and cortisol and everything gets better just sitting here talking to you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That I could be of service.
Yeah, no, but you are. I mean, what you're doing is a huge thing, because the hardest thing, as you know, is bringing doctors together, right? We couldn't even get Troy to join us today because it's hard to rope in doctors and practitioners and healthcare workers. And probably some of the sickest people I know are healthcare workers, because they're stressed and tense and worried, and their lifestyle sucks. And when they say, oh, I'm going to try doing this, and they start doing low carb, and that's why it's so fun for me at conferences to sit and talk to a doctor who's like, they're there with their husband or wife, and they're like, we need out. We can't, like, we're struggling, because the stress, being under constant stress, is not good for anyone. Right. And so acute stress, you get stressed, we got to pay our bills, we got to do this. That's fine, because you got to do those things. But when you're under stress and you're in conflict all the time, I've seen the impact, and it's unreal. It's unreal on the physiology of people, so I think being able to sit back, and the other thing is the critical importance of community, right? And so when people go to a low carb conference, it changes them, because they just go, I'm not the oddball. Look, everyone is putting heavy whipping cream in their coffee, and everyone's going for a walk at night or whatever. And you're not the only one. And in our practice, we build community, and it's a huge deal. Like, people help each other, and they love to help each other, because once you've hit, if you're an ex-alcoholic and you got your life together and everything's great now, you want to help other people out. There's like what you were saying, my wife's saying that I was not, because if I'm at a dinner party and someone wants to talk about their hemorrhoids, that's not exciting. But if they go, hey, I'm trying to get my diabetes under control, and I realize I got all night to talk to you, right? And so she's like, oh no, they're gonna ask about low carb with their cancer or whatever it is. And I love it, because I know I can help you. If I say, yeah, I put this cream on twice a day, it's not really helping you, because you know what I mean? It's just holding down the symptoms. So when we start looking at root causes, Ivor Cummins will talk about, and what Dave's doing, with cholesterol, and you start looking at it clinically. The reason I get excited is because I see it happening clinically. You could tell me all you want, and if I try it with my patient, it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If you tell me this is the best drug, Vioxx is the best drug, but all my patients are having heart attacks, I go, wait a minute, this isn't very good. I got to change what I'm doing, right? So that's the problem. Is most doctors are trained by pharma. That's the reality. And if you don't, and they say you have to have this drug, you have to eat this terrible food, and we have a drug to fix the sugar. It's like, well, how about if we just change your lifestyle and you don't need that drug that makes you pee out more sugar? You won't have to pee out more sugar because you won't have that much sugar in your system. So when people get that concept, they come off meds. You know, it's amazing to see. Deprescribing too. That's the other thing from your conferences, you know. Mark Cucuzella, I think he's speaking also, right?
He is coming, yeah. He's talking specifically some more, because he's a sports guy and a runner and all of that. His talk's going to be more focused on exercise and sports stuff as well. But I mean, it was in Boca either this year or last year or whatever. His talk was really about bullying, and since then he's actually left his university and the university hospital because of the way he was being treated. And it was like, by the end of his talk, like everyone was just like sitting there looking around, because you could see that even though he was describing a general kind of pattern, you could see that it had severely affected him, and it was kind of difficult to watch almost, to see the pain that he was in. You know?
And he was helping, when he helped people, he was getting that, and he showed better numbers and having better outcomes, and they're still treating you bad because you're not going with what they want you to do.
So I mean, you know the story about what he had, sugar basically from his little hospital. He had it removed. So all the Cokes and stuff like that, Gatorade, all those things were, the vending machines and that were removed from the hospital, so that you could get water and sort of non-sugary stuff. And then it was like everybody bragged about it in our community, like it was like such a big win, you know. Now, and then the next step is all the hospitals will do that. But like all the people in the hospital fought back, and they had the decision reversed.
Yeah, and they go for
and when it was reversed, and the machine came back. He had a picture in one of his talks, I think in San Diego.
Yes, yeah.
Where someone had taped a big sign on there that said "Sugar is back" with a bunch of
happy faces and stuff. Yeah. And you start looking at that and you go, well, are they going to do better?
That's so depressing, man. Jeez.
And that's what's hard. He worked so hard to get that happen, but then you realize, oh, the hospital has contracts with these companies, and they have to stick to the contracts and make money. And you know, you realize that your best health is not an interest. And so there's so much of that. And you know, and getting back to the passion thing, you know, I was just listening to Thomas Seyfried, who I haven't interviewed because I'm intimidated because he's such a brilliant guy, but he's a great, cool guy with a great sense of humor and everything. 77 years old, still going. Prof Noakes, I don't even know how old he is, but this guy will never stop until he dies, right? Because he loves it. He's passionate. He's not afraid to jump in the battle, but he has common sense and he has clinical experience, and he's, you know, one of the most published guys in the world. And you look at him and go, he has a passion. He's still doing it. He could have backed down. Like, we wouldn't be here talking probably right now if he backed down, right? And Gary Fetke and all these heroes. And this is for people who've never been to a low carb conference or a metabolic health conference. It is really eye-opening for me. I'm sitting next to like some of the biggest names, and they're all like, "Hey, Brian, how are you?" And like, really, Ben Bickman, the first time I met him, I was like, "Oh my gosh, what a nice guy. He's a good guy." You know, it's not like he's up on stage and gives a talk and leaves like most medical conferences, or, you know, you're not worthy to stand in my shadow type thing. But there's so much of that, and you can say, "Hey, whatever, Mike, Rob Saivis, you know, I have a question," and he'll sit there and talk to you in the back, you know, or just going to dinner and talking to people, the great conversations. And, you know, I've been there and just looking at like, okay, I'm sitting here, I got Rob Saivis, I got, you know, some of these big, huge names like, you know, Dom DeAgostino, and they're discussing something, and you go, oh my gosh, just being a fly on the wall, Doug. You know, we've seen these discussions like, wow. But Ben Bikikio talking from an exercise standpoint, someone else is talking about from a neurologic standpoint, and they go, oh, we all agree. It's amazing. It's amazing to see. Yeah.
No, it is incredible. So maybe, hopefully some people listening to this have decided that they'd like to come and see you speak about sleep and stress in August. So at the moment, I don't know when this is going to air, but up until the 4th of July, we've got a 15% discount running, and there'll probably be about a 10% discount running from then onwards. But if you use the code LowCarbMD, and I think Life's Best Medicine too, either one, they can get 20% off, and it's off your cart, right? So if you order the dinners, if you order a CME certificate, it takes that discount off your total, not just off the ticket price.
Okay, Low Carb MD or Life's Best Medicine. It doesn't matter if it's capitalized or not.
No.
All right.
I normally do it with a capital for each word just to make it more legible, but you can put it in any way you want.
Yeah, and you know, for my patients, I always recommend it, you know, because it makes my job as a doctor so much easier, right? Because you think I'm going to explain cancer better than the cancer experts? I can't. I don't have the experience in that area, but I know it helps. But to have people talk about their patients, and so every aspect of health, if you're interested in health, I think this is it. San Diego's the best, you know, and Boca. I mean, they're great conferences. So I think just coming out, and even if you just care about cancer or you have a family member, it's nice to have the most knowledge you can and see what's happening clinically. The cancer revolution is just amazing what they're doing, and her story, I was blown, as a doctor, I'm blown away, because it's like, man, that's the scariest diagnosis you can get, probably dementia. And we have tools to help with dementia. We have tools that help with cancer, but those are the two big scary ones, you know, that none of us want to get dementia. So you go, okay, I might have some genetic predisposition, but what can I do? Instead of just saying this is a chronic progressive disease, you're going to get it, here's what's going to happen, and you're not going to be able to put your shoes on someday. You know, there's stuff we can do with diabetes management. And so when people get educated, they do so much better. And also they'll come back to me with questions, go, hey, this person, you know, Michael Eads says this, what do you think? You know, because there's always, the other good thing is not everyone's drinking the same Kool-Aid. At some point, you know, Rob may have a different opinion than me on fat intake or lean protein. We've seen that over time. So, you know, seeing the paradigm shift and open-minded people like Professor Noakes, who will say, oh, yeah, we need to tweak this a little bit. Let's make this change and see what happens. And not just saying, this is what I said 20 years ago, so I'm sticking with it. Right. The arrogance that is so entrenched in medicine. You don't see that at these conferences. And that's why it's cool that you could just approach and talk to people and, you know, get their 2 cents. And so it's always like a family reunion for us when we all get together.
Yeah, no, it's like when it comes to an end, it's almost like bittersweet, you know. It's like, it's kind of a relief that all the drama's over and it's done, but it's always really sad to know, you know, to realize that everybody's going home, and that excited environment that has existed for those 4 days is, you know, going to be experiencing that. You get up tomorrow morning, like I get up the day after the conference and come down the elevator into the lobby, and like all the vendor stuff is gone, and maybe they're even setting up for some other random conference or whatever. And I mean, and a couple of the times in San Diego, we've come down and literally they were setting up for the next meeting, which was selling diabetes meds. Like after we'd had this 4 days, there was the next company that was doing a conference in the hotel was selling all these diabetes meds. And Pam like walked into the thing. It's like she's had her arms folded like this, and she's looking at all these posters and stuff. And she's like looking for someone to fight with, you know.
Yeah, it's frustrating as a doc, you know. You see it, you know, you can see the difference. And you know, the other thing is the other reason I love the conferences is we'll run into people and hear their stories, right? Some of our guests from Low Carb MD and Life's Best Medicine is from the conference, could just say, what's your story? Oh, you know what, I was in bed 2 years ago, I couldn't walk, and here I am now. And you go, wow, there's nothing like that, you know. And you're not going to hear someone say, yeah, I was in bed 2 years ago and then I shot this drug up and then I got better, right?
No, exactly.
It's yeah.
like I said, that's what's so sad. It's like you start to realize like you've been immersed in this environment with all these stories going on around you for 4 days, and now suddenly it's all going to evaporate, and that's always a bit sad. But
well, and it's, no one's saying metabolic health doesn't, it's an effort. You got to make an effort. You got to make some changes. You got to look at life differently. And that's that whole thing of sitting back and taking a breath and reassessing and saying, am I happy where I'm at? You know, I can't walk up the hill with my family and I have to sit in the car, you know, those kind of things. You want people, and I see people that they got their life back, you know, and they're in their 80s, and all of a sudden they're as fit as they were when they were 50, you know, or even better than, they're like, I should have done this 30 years ago. I wasted my life, you know? So those are great things when, you know, I had people in their late 70s come to me again, let's do this thing. And they're ready to go, and they do great. And all the tools and all the stuff we've learned, it's amazing that we can really, really help people. So Doug, I have to ask you, since we're doing this on both podcasts, what's life's best medicine for you? What gets you going? What gets you motivated? Where do you go to when things are kind of rough?
Where do I go when things are kind of rough? I was thinking about that the other day, and I don't know, man. It's like, I think going back to some of the testimonials, you know, like when and when things are going rough for me, it's like when stuff's very difficult, or it's, you know, I don't know, like the conference is not coming together, or whatever. But then we go back to like the stories that you were talking about. Like, it's just, we got so many now where people will talk about how coming to that conference changed their lives, you know, saved their lives a lot of time. And that renews my inspiration, to come back and get up again and start doing that, you know. That whole thing about, it's not about getting knocked down, it's about whether you get back up again, you know, and with what attitude you get back up again. And I find that, and I always encourage people, if you've got a story, like, send it to us, because it really does help us to get back up again with the right attitude when we get knocked down, you know.
Yeah, it helps someone else along the way too. When someone else is struggling with that condition, you go, look, here's someone else's story. Here, let's connect you with them and let them tell you what they did, you know, how they overcame breast cancer, or how they overcame different things, and how they use it as an adjunctive to chemotherapy and radiation, whatever. So, you know, and again, you know, I think minimizing medication use, you know, whatever we can do lifestyle wise. And again, having all these people under one roof that you can say, oh, I'm interested in exercise, I'll talk to Ben. I'm interested in cancer, I'm interested in mental health. And so there's people there that you can, if you're struggling with that, they can help you with that struggle, you know. So it's amazing to see. And, you know, I'm really excited about the conference. I'm honored to be able to speak again. And you know, I think it's just a great, it's a great time. It's a lot of fun. You learn, but there's always fun at night. Everyone's sitting around talking and having a good time, getting to know people that maybe you're intimidated by. And then you say, well, they're really a nice person, you know, once you get to know them. So yeah, I think it's really great. Plus just building community. People will say, oh, you're from Idaho, so am I. Let's do something when we get back, you know. And we see people building their own communities, like in Arizona, they, you know, from low carb meetings, they go back and they start a community there. And now I already have a community that I can join that's close by. So, you know, all those kind of things, and meeting nice people, and you seeing their integrity, and that they want to help people, and that you can work together and not give conflicting, you know, advice. And that's what's hard, is the doctor says one thing, they go to the cardiologist, they say something else, and the neurologist says something different, and you're like, okay, look, here's the data, that's all I can do is show you that. So it's amazing when you have, like, everyone's on the same page, and they're not getting criticized all the time by their healthcare person saying they're killing themselves when all their numbers are getting better.
Yeah,
you know,
we originally kind of started this with the idea of giving people a place to come to, at least for a couple of days, where they were exactly what you say, where they're in with like-minded people, and they're not being attacked by their doctors and their family members and their friends and that for trying to do this, to make them healthier, you know. But what we realized a couple of years in was that it was even more important for the doctors and the other practitioners, the nutritionists and the RDs that, I mean, the RDs that try to do this are really persecuted. And to provide them with a safe place to come and be able to have these discussions and talk excitedly about it without getting shut down by their peers and colleagues. Even more importantly, it provides that for the doctors and the other practitioners there, which is always really cool to see that they,
and
it's so sad that they get treated so badly,
Yeah, and the RDs, I'm telling you, when they start seeing results, us docs want to see results. So I don't send people for diabetes education anymore. My results were terrible every time. They're eating 6 meals a day, tons of carbs, and their sugars are crazy, and they're shooting more insulin. It's like, do you want to do that, or do you want to go to this registered dietitian who does what she's talking about? And then they get better, and their sugars are better, and they're like, I'm off my meds. Okay, cool. This is great. That's what we love to see. It's amazing how, as docs, we get paid more to give more meds in the system. And I earned my keep by getting you off your meds and saving you a little copay here and there, that kind of, people don't realize how expensive these drugs are, right. So anyways, Doug, I'm excited about all you're doing. I'm excited.
Well, thanks, Brian. I mean, honestly, I feel like you and Tro have done more than I have done in this space, but at least I can say that the trigger was the event that you came to that really got you going on this. So Pam and I are more thankful to you and Tro for what you've done than any of you guys could be for us. But
yeah, we all impacted. We all cross paths for a reason. We all impact each other, right?
Yeah. People
listen to this or say, hey, I'll go to the conference, try it out. Then they end up leading huge small groups. And I have people who've evangelized their entire community. They go up there, and I have a 78-year-old lady. She changed her life, reversed her diabetes. She got her son off alcohol. She did all this stuff. And they go, wow, one person. And that's what you see too. These stories of one person goes, hey, this is working. Let me try it with you. And so I have so many people that are referring their family members and cousins and uncle and the guy they work with that has sugar out of control. And some people are ready, some people aren't, but the people who are committed, they crush it. And it's amazing to see. And it's like, for me, and it's a crazy thing, the sicker you are when you come to me, the more happy I am, because I know, I go, oh, we could fix that. Oh yeah, we could do that. We could do that. I know. And people get better. And that's when, if you're pretty healthy already, it's not as dramatic. But if you're really eating fast food 4 times a day, when I hear that, I go, oh man, this is going to be great. Like, I know what's going to come for you, right? Because just making little changes there, here and there, and getting Ben's workout in, and we know the tools now that can help us. So it's awesome. So I'm looking forward to it. Everyone, Doug, when's the dates of it? It's August
17 to 20 of August
in San Diego. There's places you can walk to down by the beach right there.
Yeah, no, I mean, the hotel's like right there on the bay. So whole new complex they've built across the road with a bunch of new restaurants and stuff like that. Sign up for the dinners and come and get, the chef works really hard to provide really good keto diet dinners, and even there's a carnivore option even as well.
Yeah, and we have CGMs. We have CGMs to double check those guys too. So,
oh yeah, so that's that's happened. I mean, we even did that in Boca this year. We went and they wanted to try the desserts because we had complaints from the year before, and we literally went in a few days early wearing CGMs, and the chef brought us the different desserts, and we ate the dessert and sat and watched my CGM stats over the half hour, and then I ate the other one, and we watched it again, and I ate the third one, and it just like started shooting up.
Yeah, it's amazing. My 2 biggest spikes this week that I've seen was from zero sugar vanilla frozen yogurt and boba, sugar-free boba, because the little boba have sugar and it's tapioca sugar, right? So you realize, it's amazing. That's why the CGM is so great. Yeah. So we'll talk about that at length at the conference. So
yeah.
Awesome stuff, man. And again, how do people get to the website to track you down? And
all right, so lowcarbusa.org. And then if you in the main event, in the main menu bar, the white menu bar, one of the options is events, and the drop down will show, you know, the next San Diego event, our Boca event coming up in January, and then a list of the videos and CMEs that are still available for some of our previous events. But the top one in the drop down is the San Diego event.
And are you going to live stream it again?
We are live streaming it as well. So there's an in-person and a live stream option. And the live stream people can still order and request a CME certificate as well if it's something that they need.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah,
all right,
and the 20% gets you 20% off whichever option you choose.
Awesome. And you have some work to do. I know that's a stressful time for you, getting ready for these conferences and getting everything dialed in and speakers. And so stay well, man.
It's but the stress is really building up to it and making sure everything is right and done. By the time we get there, normally everything's in place, and so then I just got to make sure that put out the little fires and stuff and keep it going, you know. But it's not as stressful as
well. And I'll tell you, you know, one thing I'll tell you, you know, I've spoken at a few places, and your IT guys, the AV guys are just top notch, great guys. And you know, things are going to work, and not get up there and go, my clicker doesn't work. That's the worst thing that can happen, you know, but you run on time. The speaker's schedule is good, you know, unless I'm trying to think of what's his name that you know, sometimes he'll have 3,000 slides, you know, and you're like, but he's great. He's great. I love it. But you know, it happens. So anyways, you do a good job of keeping us in line and making sure Rob and I don't ask too long of questions and all that stuff. But
yeah,
it's a fun time. I'll try to be on good behavior this time.
Behave yourself, man.
All right.
Okay.
Take care, Doug. Thank you.
Cheers, mate.
Stay out of Pam.
Thanks, will do.